Welcome to The Truth About the Plant, the show that takes you on a journey through the world of psychoactive plants and alternative wellness, all while delivering the real, actionable insights you crave. I'm your host, Christina Dees. This is my co host, Dr. Amanda Ryman. Dr. Ryman, you want to tell them why we're here?
Well, we're here to separate fact from fiction, to provide you with the real actionable information you need. Think of us as your trusted source for uncovering the secrets of plant medicine, just like the candid advice you might get from your cool aunties or your kick-ass granddaughter.
That's us. Well, today we're diving into a burning question, and that is marijuana addictive? So strap in as we navigate through the truth maze and delve right into the heart of the matter. Dr. Ryman, I got to ask, is marijuana addictive?
Well, that's a great question. And it's something that I get a lot. And, let's face it, we've gotten very conflicting information when it comes to the question about whether marijuana is addictive. I grew up in the DARE generation. And when I was in school, we were taught that it was one of the most addictive drugs out there, that if you used marijuana even once, you were going to get addicted, that it was going to lead to the use of other drugs. But now we know a lot better. And so we can really get a little bit deeper into this question. So one thing I want to start with is kind of the concept of addiction. So the concept of addiction is actually quite antiquated, and it doesn't really serve us when we're trying to help people have healthy, balanced relationships with substances, with the internet, with social media, with food, with exercise. And while a lot of the markers that we call addiction, things like withdrawal or tolerance, so needing more in order to get the same effect, or having negative outcomes in your life because of your use, can definitely be a sign of hazardous or not healthy use. It's still kind of a question about when does that actually become addiction? And one of the things that's complicated this even more is that one of the markers for addiction is whether or not people have told you they want you to stop or cut down your use, whether it's gotten in the way of employment, or whether it's had other negative consequences in your life. Now, of course, we know that when people are using drugs that are illegal, a lot of those consequences can come not from the use itself, but from the legal status of the use. So getting drug tested at work, or having someone in your life say that they don't want you to use that because they don't want you to get arrested, doesn't have to do so much with your use as it does the rules around what is legal and what is not. So I think that the term addiction in and of itself can be problematic. So when we talk about cannabis use, we're going to try to move away from the traditional paradigm of what is addiction.
Okay, so it sounds like addiction is a complicated subject. How does cannabis use fit in?
Well, cannabis use fits in a few ways. So remember, I mentioned some of the key markers of addiction being withdrawal. So feeling negative effects in your body and your mind when you stop using a substance, tolerance, needing more of a substance in order to feel the same effect. We definitely see some of those markers with cannabis use. So people that use cannabis for long periods of time develop a tolerance. So when maybe they were using 10 milligrams of THC in an edible a few years ago, and now they're up to 20 or 30 milligrams before getting that same effect. That is absolutely tolerance. And withdrawal, feeling negative effects when you stop using a substance, can also happen with cannabis. But the interesting thing is that because cannabis is a therapeutic tool, for some people, there's tolerance to a lot of medications, right? So if we use a medication regularly over time, we may need more to get the same effect. And if we're using a medication to quell certain symptoms in our bodies or our minds, if we stop using that medication, those symptoms may come back. So again, it gets really complicated when we talk about cannabis, which is why instead of addiction, I prefer more to think of it as a habit. So we all have habits. Some of those habits are beneficial to us, like brushing our teeth every day or exercising. Some of those habits can get in the way, like overuse of social media. So it's important for us to think about what are the things that we do regularly and how are they benefiting or not benefiting what we want to accomplish in our lives. So cannabis, because it makes us feel good, right? It makes us feel better. It brings on euphoria, can absolutely be habit forming, meaning that it becomes a regular part of your day, something that is just the same as brushing your teeth or making your coffee in the morning, which by the way is a caffeine habit. And so talking about habitual use and how we keep that in check and make sure that it's bringing positive things to our life is really a better way to frame cannabis than looking at it straight through the lens of addiction.
Okay, so if cannabis is a habit, will someone get withdrawals if they stop?
So that's a good question. And the answer is if you've been using cannabis regularly for a long period of time, yeah. When you stop using, you're probably going to experience some negative outcomes. But there's a biological reason for this that I think is really important. So, our endocannabinoid system, which is like our nervous system, it regulates our body. It's responsible for maintaining homeostasis or balance in the body. Some of the specific things that it regulates are mood, sleep, appetite. And so when we stop using cannabis, if we've been using it for a long time, our endocannabinoid system may take a little time, maybe even up to 2 weeks, to start functioning normally again. Because when you're introducing cannabinoids from the plant, your endocannabinoid system, which also produces those same chemicals, takes a little vacation. I mean, after all, you're doing its job for it. You're introducing all of these cannabinoids from the plant. Those cannabinoids are balancing your mood, they're balancing your appetite, they're balancing your sleep. And so your endocannabinoid system's like, all right, nothing for me to do here. And it may slow down and get a little sluggish. So after you stop bringing in cannabinoids from the plant, it can take a little while for your endocannabinoid system to wake up and realize it's got a job to do again. And so some of the feelings you might experience in that period between stopping cannabis use and your endocannabinoid system picking up the slack are going to have to do with those processes that are regulated by cannabinoids. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you might feel annoyed or in a bad mood. It means that you might not have much of an appetite. And it means that your sleep might be a little bit disturbed. But these symptoms usually go away in less than 2 weeks once your endocannabinoid system gets itself back up and running again.
So, how can people prevent their cannabis use from becoming a habit that doesn't serve them?
Well, that's a great question. And look, we're all about awareness and intention, right? So, really thinking about why am I consuming cannabis right now? What is the intention of this consumption? And am I aware of how this is fitting into my life? So, this is important for everything, right? When it comes to the food we eat, when it comes to the things that we watch, mindless activity is what gets us into trouble. So, you're looking at your phone, you say you're going to go on and just check Instagram, and then all of a sudden it's like 30 minutes later, and you've just been like glassy eyed and looking at videos. That is when your consumption of Instagram has become mindless. If you go into the kitchen with the idea that you're just going to have one or two potato chips, you bring the whole bag into the living room, and before you know it, half the bag is gone. That is mindless consumption of potato chips. So if you find yourself reaching for the vape pen or reaching for the bowl or reaching for the bong or reaching for the edible multiple times a day, you may not even be thinking about it. You may be doing it purely out of habit. So we recommend that every time you reach for a cannabis tool to have some consumption, think about, why am I doing this right now? What am I trying to get out of it? But an important part of that is to not judge yourself. See, one of the things we do with our consumption of food, of the internet, of cannabis, of alcohol, is we assign this judgment to it, right? And we hear this with food a lot, right? Like, oh, I was good yesterday, so today I'm going to have a cupcake. That is assigning this kind of pride and shame cycle to the behavior that actually exacerbates mindless consumption. Because when you judge yourself, one of the things you do is just throw away the brain altogether so you don't have that judgment, but you need that awareness. So having awareness, not judging yourself, asking yourself, what is the intention right now of consuming this? And then a final thing you can do is take a break. I mean, one of the things about habits is that become habitual over time. It takes about 28 days of a regular behavior in order for that behavior to become a habit. So if you want to prevent cannabis from becoming truly a habit, take a break. I myself take a couple days off every month just so I can assess what my consumption patterns are like so that my endocannabinoid system doesn't get sluggish and so that I can keep my tolerance in check.
You always do such a fantastic job of like breaking down a simple question and giving out these most fascinating nuggets of information. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this, because I think it's an easy way to understand an answer to a question. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so much out there. There's so much noise when it comes to cannabis. And what we're really trying to do is break through that noise and give you exactly what you need to know to have your best relationship possible with the plant.
That's right. And if you found today's episode as fascinating as we have, don't be shy. Share the love. Your shares keep the truth flowing. And if you have questions, you can send them to mypersonalplants.com. Maybe your question will get asked and answered on the show. And always, you can visit the YouTube channel for an extra dose of wisdom and fun. Until next time, stay curious, stay enlightened, and keep exploring the secrets of the plant.